Okay, let's dive in. There was this huge news story back on April 10th, grabbing headlines everywhere.
Ah, you mean the Alibaba fine.
Exactly. Massive fine against Alibaba, something like 300 billion yen, which is, what, over 18 billion yuan?
Yeah, 18.228 billion yuan. A staggering number.
And it wasn't just the size of the fine, was it? It felt like, I don't know, a signal, like a big shift happening in China's tech world.
Definitely. And it's really the most prominent example we've seen of China's anti-monopoly law, the shones, being, well, seriously applied to these huge tech companies.
So that's what we're digging into today. We've got the source material, and our mission really is to unpack why this is happening now. What exactly are regulators targeting?
And what does it all mean, for the market, for innovation, the future of these giants?
Right. So starting with Alibaba, what was the main charge from the regulator, SAMRs?
Okay, so the core issue was a practice they call whole.
Yi.
Yeah, it literally translates to choose one of two.
Choose one of two. Okay, so for a merchant, someone selling on Alibaba's Taobao platform, what did that mean in practice?
Well, according to the source, going back to around 2015, Alibaba was putting pressure on merchants
Pressure how?
to sell only on Taobao, not on rival e-commerce sites. They were pushing for exclusivity,
Like building a walled garden.
essentially. Yeah.
But hang on, offering sellers, like, better terms or perks if they sell only with you? That happens everywhere, doesn't it? Is that illegal?
Good point. And no, offering incentives for exclusivity itself isn't the illegal part.
Uh,
The problem, as the source explains it, is when you use unfair methods against the merchants who refuse to be exclusive.
Unfair methods like what?
Well, the source gives examples, like limiting the data they provided to non-exclusive sellers.
Right, the sales data they need to run their business effectively.
Exactly. And maybe even more significantly, using technical tricks, algorithmic means, to basically penalize them.
So making their products harder to find in searches.
Precisely. Pushing them way down the results list, which obviously hurts their sales potential massively.
And that, the source says, violated the merchant's rights to choose where they sell.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
a violation of the law. And that led to the fine 4% of their 2019 revenue, as the source notes, a significant chunk.
And this wasn't just a one-off hit against Alibaba, was it? Sammer followed up pretty quickly.
They did, just a few days later, April 13th. They called in, get this, 34 major tech companies.
Wow. Who are we talking about?
Oh, all the big names. Tencent, Didi, Meituan, JD.com, Pinduo, Duo, ByteDance. The list goes on.
And what was the message to them?
It was called administrative guidance, but essentially they were told, look at your own practices, investigate yourselves for potential anti-monopoly issues, and report back within a month.
Or else.
Or else face potential fines. The figure mentioned was 3–4% of annual revenue if violations were found later. So a pretty clear warning shot.
We'd already seen some smaller fines before this, right?
Yeah.
And things like community group buying.
Yeah, the source mentions that too. Affiliates of Alibaba, Tencent, Pinduoduo, Didi, and Meituan had been fined earlier for unfair pricing in that space. So Alibaba was definitely active.
It shows they weren't just waking up to this issue with the Alibaba case.
Not at all. The source points out that in 2020 alone, SAMR issued 109 anti-monopoly penalties. They received nearly 500 violation reports.
So the Alibaba fine, while huge in absolute terms, wasn't necessarily out of proportion percentage-wise.
Exactly. It just reflected Alibaba's massive revenue. Proportionally, it was in line with how they calculate these things.
It's interesting, the source brings up the history of the word monopoly.
Well, right, from Mencius. This idea of someone standing on a mound, getting an unfair view, an unfair advantage in the marketplace.
Suggests a kind of deep-rooted idea that grabbing an unfair edge is, well, not right.
Yeah, it implies deceit or taking advantage, not just competing hard.
Now, there was lots of speculation about why Alibaba was targeted. Political reasons, Jack Ma's comments, maybe just their sheer size.
Right, and the source acknowledges those interpretations are out there.
But it doesn't claim to know the truth behind it. It focuses purely on the business reasons cited by the regulator.
Which is the angle we're taking here, based on the material. And from that business perspective, the source argues the real problem they're trying to fix is this choose one of two dynamic.
Because it lets the companies with the most money dominate.
Precisely. Companies like Alibaba and Tencent with deep pockets can use these tactics to consolidate power. They can basically force smaller players into a corner.
Which obviously stifles actual competition.
Hugely. It makes it incredibly tough for innovative startups, the real pioneers, with new ideas to actually survive and grow on their own.
They either have to pick a side, Get funding from one of the giants.
or get acquired by them.
Hmm.
And this whole situation, the source suggests, encourages the big players to just copy successful ideas instead of taking risks on truly new things.
Leading to more market concentration.
Which, down the line, usually means less choice and maybe higher prices for consumers once the competition's been weakened.
So the source sees this anti-monopoly push as an attempt to correct that, to steer things back towards competition based on, like, service and quality, not just who has the most cash.
That's the core argument presented, yes.
Yeah.
A necessary market correction.
Okay, let's make this more concrete. The source gives some really vivid examples, stories of how this has played out.
Yeah, these stories really bring the dynamics to life. Take Wang Xing, the founder of Meituan.
Now a giant in food delivery and local services.
Right. But years ago, he was actually very critical of Jack Ma and Alibaba, specifically calling out this choose one of two tactic.
Yep.
He even called Ma insincere publicly.
Interesting. And Meituan itself started out very differently, didn't it? Wasn't it a Groupon clone initially?
It was. Back when group buying was exploding, there were literally thousands of companies doing it. Fierce competition.
So how did Meituan survive that?
Aggressive pricing, which meant burning through cash.
Yeah.
And here's the twist the source points out. One of their major early backers was actually Alibaba. Jack Ma helped fund Meituan's early growth.
Okay, so they were partners initially. What caused the break?
The source pins it to around 2015. The claim is Jack Ma demanded Meituan only use Alipay for payments, cut out Tencent's WeChat Pay completely.
Trying to lock them into the Alibaba ecosystem.
Exactly. And Wang Xing, described as very strategic, apparently saw this as a huge risk, a risk of being totally absorbed, losing independence.
So he pushed back.
He did. He ultimately broke ties with Alibaba and took investment from Tencent instead, a strategic move to stay independent. It really shows the tough spot these successful startups found themselves in.
That's one side. What about Le.me, the food delivery pioneer?
Another fascinating story from the source. Founded by Zhang Zhuhao, a student at Shanghai Jiaotong University.
He saw the potential in campus food delivery early on.
Yeah, and not just delivery, but using the platform for data, insights for restaurants. That was his innovation.
But Meituan jumped into food delivery later and became a huge competitor.
Right. Le.me, maybe starting more organically, perhaps didn't have Meituan's initial aggressive scale. Meituan caught up, then overtook them.
And Le.me needed cash to compete.
And they turned to Alibaba, initially as an investor, but then in 2018, Alibaba fully acquired them.
And the founder, Zhang Zhuhao.
Left soon after, the source notes. It's presented as the classic case of the innovator being swallowed by the giant, precisely what Wang Xing at Meituan managed to avoid.
And the irony, as the source points out, is just incredible.
Tell me about it.
Meituan, led by the guy who broke with Alibaba over choose one of two, is now reportedly being investigated for doing the exact same thing.
Yep. SAMR announced an investigation into Meituan on April 26th. The details aren't fully public, but reports suggest they're accused of pressuring restaurants not to use rival platforms, like A.me.
The platform Alibaba now owns.
Exactly. And allegedly threatening restaurants with higher fees or making them less visible on Meituan if they didn't comply.
It just shows how tempting that behavior becomes once you have market power.
It really does. It's like a pattern.
These patterns, the capital wars, the exclusivity demands, they didn't just affect which app you used, they shaped whole industries.
Oh, absolutely. The source points to the ride-hailing burning money war, the ARI.
Right, Didi versus Kuwaiti.
Back in 2013, 2014. Didi, backed mainly by Tencent, Kuwaiti by Alibaba, they were just throwing money, billions of yuan, at users in coupons.
They made rides incredibly cheap for a while.
Almost absurdly cheap. The source mentions people apparently taking taxis for walks they could easily make.
Clearly unsustainable.
Totally. Then Uber China entered the picture, adding more pressure, and the big investors behind Didi and Kuwaiti, they pushed them to merge.
To fight Uber together?
Basically, yeah. So these rivals, funded by opposing giants, merged in 2015 to form the new Didi.
And they continued the price war against Uber.
They did. Until eventually, in 2016, Uber China threw in the towel and sold its operations to Didi for a stake in the company.
Leaving Didi totally dominant, over 90% market share in big cities.
And what happens then? The source points out the obvious. The subsidies dried up, prices started creeping back up, rides weren't much cheaper than regular taxis anymore.
So the consumer benefit from that war was pretty short-lived.
Very temporary. Consolidation killed the intense price competition. It's a classic example of how these capital wars play out.
And the shared bike story. Another case of innovators versus capital.
A really poignant one, according to the source. It focuses on Daiwei, Omo's founder.
He had this vision at Beijing University, seeing all the messy, abandoned bikes.
Yeah, he wanted an orderly sharing system. But his motivation seemed almost philosophical: bikes as a tool to see the world, not just a business.
But the investors saw dollar signs, like Zhu Xiaohu, mentioned in the source.
Right. They wanted rapid growth, quick returns. Daiwei reportedly really resisted giving up control, especially to giants like Alibaba, who offered funding but wanted significant influence.
So how did he try to fund it?
He took on risky debt, using company assets, even his own shares, as collateral, trying to avoid diluting his control by giving away too much equity.
A huge gamble.
And one that ultimately didn't work out for OFO. The source suggests they're unlikely to recover from their struggles.
While the market consolidated elsewhere.
Exactly. Alibaba backed Hello Bike, effectively taking control. And Tencent-backed Meituan bought Mobike, OFO's main competitor.
So again, the initial innovators struggled, and the players backed by the tech giants ended up dominating.
It really hammers home the source's point about how overwhelming capital can crush independent innovation, even when the original idea is strong.
So underneath all these specific examples, the platform fights, the acquisitions, the price wars, there's something even more fundamental driving it.
The source argues yes. It traces it back to the huge strategic battle between the two payment giants, Alibaba's Alipay and Tencent's WeChat Pay.
Because mobile payments aren't just about paying anymore.
Not even close. They're the doorways, the main gateways into these enormous digital ecosystems of services.
Right.
The source uses a great example: renting a portable phone charger.
Ah, yeah, those battery packs you find everywhere.
Exactly. Think about it. If you had to download a separate app, sign up, verify your ID every single time your phone was dying, it would be a nightmare. No one would do it. But if you can just scan a QR code with Alipay or WeChat Pay,
It's instant. Because they already have your ID, your payment details.
seamless. And that incredible convenience forces almost any new service like that to integrate with Alipay or WeChat Pay or both, just to be viable, to get users easily.
And from the giants' perspective, they want all these services inside their ecosystem.
Absolutely. The more daily life services you access through Alipay or WeChat Pay, the stickier that payment platform becomes, the more data they gather, the more powerful their ecosystem gets.
So that pressure for choose one of two, the exclusivity demands we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
it stems from this deeper fight to control the front door to our digital lives.
That's the argument in the source. While Alibaba and Tencent probably saw it as just smart business competing hard, expanding their services, making things convenient within their own walls, the side effect was boxing people in.
Limiting choice, making it hard for independent players.
Exactly. Hindering those operating across platforms or trying to build something outside those ecosystems. And that, the author suggests, is the market contradiction the anti-monopoly rules are trying to resolve.
To shift the battleground away from just who controls the payment gateway and back towards, who actually offers the best service, price, or product.
That's the stated aim, according to the source. To level the playing field a bit, create breathing room for new ideas for smaller players.
And are we actually seeing signs that competition is changing because of this pressure?
Well, the source points strongly towards Pinduoduo as a major disruptor forcing change.
Right, the e-commerce platform that came out of nowhere, seemingly.
And by 2020 had actually overtaken Taobao in terms of annual active users, more people using it than Taobao.
How did they manage that? It wasn't just cheap stuff, was it?
Cheap goods were key, but the how was crucial. They leveraged Tencent's WeChat massively.
Through social sharing.
Exactly. Their whole model is built on group buying discounts. You share a deal with friends on WeChat, everyone gets a lower price. It's inherently viral within that social network.
Which means they didn't need to spend as much on traditional ads as Taobao.
Far less. It gave them a huge structural advantage for reaching users interested in low-margin, high-volume goods. An advantage Taobao, lacking its own giant built-in social network like WeChat, just didn't have.
So how did Alibaba respond to this structural threat?
Well, they launched Taobao Tejiaban, a special price version, targeting that same low-cost market, often working directly with factories.
But they still had the sharing problem, right? Hard to virally share a Taobao deal within WeChat groups?
Correct. Structurally, it was difficult to replicate Pinduoduo's seamless social spread, which leads to this really fascinating move mentioned in the source.
What did Alibaba do?
They actually applied to Tencent to launch Taobao Tijiban as a WeChat mini program.
Wow. Alibaba wanting to operate inside Tencent's ecosystem.
Think about that. It would allow users to share Taobao deals effortlessly within WeChat, maybe even pay using WeChat Pay, right there in the mini program.
That would have been almost unthinkable just a short time ago. Direct rivals cooperating like that.
It really shows how seriously Alibaba takes the Pinduoduo challenge and how the competitive landscape is being reshaped. They seemingly feel they need access to WeChat's social structure to compete effectively in that segment, even if it means playing on their rivals' turf and potentially boosting Tencent's ecosystem.
Suggests a shift away from pure ecosystem wars towards competing more directly on price, product, and maybe ease of sharing.
That's what it looks like, yeah. A more direct consumer-facing competition might be emerging.
So, wrapping up, what's the overall outlook here for China's tech sector? Where does this leave things?
Well, the source highlights there isn't really consensus. Some analysts are quite pessimistic.
Predicting stagnation.
Yeah, arguing that these restrictions will curb the growth of the giants, make it harder for them to expand using the old playbook.
But the author of our source material seems more optimistic.
Leans that way, yes. The argument is that by reining in some of the dominance of pure capital and these exclusive practices, the regulations might actually foster new growth.
By giving innovators more room to breathe.
Exactly, creating a better chance for them to survive, maybe even thrive independently. The source mentions ByteDance as an example, a company that grew incredibly fast, relatively independently.
Suggesting it's still possible, maybe even more possible now.
That's the hope expressed in the source material, that this correction could lead to a more dynamic, less consolidated innovation landscape.
Okay, so that leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder, doesn't it? Given everything we've discussed, this whole history of capital wars, consolidation, the choose one of two tactics, will these regulatory actions truly succeed in leveling the playing field for the next wave of innovators? Or will the established giants just find new, maybe less obvious ways to maintain their edge?
And what kind of innovation does this new environment encourage? Does it shift the focus?
Yeah, what does the future of Chinese tech innovation look like in this slightly reshuffled world? Something definitely worth thinking about.